From numerous pitchers getting injured in the 2024 MLB season, to the baseball world dying to come up with a solution to this horrible problem, let's talk about how MLB pitchers are ending their careers. One thing's for certain, during the MLB season, pitchers are going to suffer injuries. At one point in time, when pitchers blew their arms out, it meant their career was done. But after Frank Job's groundbreaking surgery on Tommy John, pitchers can return to the game they love in 12 to 18 months. And while that's great, the fact that pitchers are still suffering so many injuries isn't. March and April are especially risky for pitchers and the health of their arms, because they're hoping to safely ramp up for a season of velocity-driven violence. The issue has gotten so bad that in just the last 13 months, dating back to March of 2023, there have been 38 major league pitchers who've required elbow reconstruction. The most recent victims include Shane Bieber of the Cleveland Guardians, who's set to undergo elbow reconstruction, keeping him out not just for the 2024 season, but most of the 2025 as well, and Jonathan Loaisiga of the New York Yankees, who has a torn UCL keeping him out for the rest of this season. The Atlanta Braves also revealed that Spencer Strider has a damaged UCL, which will probably keep him out for the season too. As for the Miami Marlins, their prized prospect Yuri Perez also has to undergo Tommy John surgery. Clearly, the situation is so out of control, which is a concern. In fact, things have gotten so bad that veteran trainer Stan Conti said, "This isn't an epidemic, but a pandemic of injuries, since it's been going on forever and only getting worse, so it looks like there's no end in sight." The MLB commissioned a research study and interviewed medical experts, and based on their findings, they discovered that more than 260 major league and minor league pitchers had elbow injuries in 2021. That's an increase of more than 400% from 10 years ago. Yeah, you heard that right. On top of that, the number of pitchers requiring Tommy John surgery a second time has also doubled. And according to research done by John Rogel, 35.7% of all pitchers on MLB rosters had undergone Tommy John surgery at some point in their lives, a 29% increase from 2016. Since then, 11 more have had it, so that raises the number to 37%. In 2023, teams spent an MLB record $1.1 billion on salaries for injured players, most of whom were pitchers, and their replacements. As you can see, the problem is at an all-time high right now, and even though people have been trying to come up with different solutions, nothing seems to be working, according to Stan Conti, who was a trainer or head of medical services for various MLB teams, doesn't have an answer either. The coaches are also understandably concerned about the situation, with Yankees pitching coach Matt Blake saying that he's pretty worried about trying to get through 9 innings worth of pitching every night over 162 games. But why are pitchers getting injured so often, and why is the issue only getting worse? Well, one of the reasons is the chase for velocity. Strider, whose 98 miles per hour fastball helped him strike out numerous batters in 2023, says, "Front offices are paying for strikeouts. So there's a max velocity craze, meaning pitchers are engaged in high-impact training so that they can be seen as more valuable to their sides. Because of this, there was a move towards what's been called 3 true outcomes in baseball. This led to the game not being as enjoyable, and the MLB introduced various changes to counter this, including the pitch clock. I'll get to that in a bit. Either way, the craze for velocity is still very much part of the game, as the average fastball velocity jumped from 90.5 miles per hour in 2008 to nearly 94 in 2022, and finally topped 94 for the first time in 2023. And by the end of 2023, 31 of the 64 hardest throwers, as per StatCast metrics, needed Tommy John surgery at some point in their playing careers. Based on all the evidence, it's clear that the desire for velocity has played a pretty big role in all of this. Even Justin Verlander of the Astros has said that the MLB's facing this pandemic because everyone's style of pitching has changed so much. He said that everyone's throwing the ball as hard as they possibly can and spinning the ball as hard as they possibly can. He then went on to talk about how it doesn't make sense to tell pitchers to stop throwing balls at 100 miles per hour when they're capable of doing it. Verlander also called for change, but like the others, he doesn't really know what exactly can be done. Besides the fixation on velocity, changes such as the pitch clock are also a major reason why injuries are at an all-time high. The pitch clock was introduced in the MLB in 2023 to reduce game time, but the Major League Baseball Players Association claims that the increased arm injuries of pitchers are directly related to the implementation of the pitch clock. And players such as Strider themselves have come out and talked about how the MLB, introducing the pitch clock, limiting the number of pitchers on the roster, how many pitching changes you can make and so on, make managing health much harder. Strider then went on to say that with injuries being at an all-time high, he doesn't get how the MLB can just blindly decrease the clock after the worst injury season in baseball, without having a conversation about injuries. The athlete said he knows the MLB introduced the pitch clock to create more action, but he made an important point. What's the point if the best players aren't even out there? As A.J. Hinch, manager of the Detroit Tigers, said, baseball deserves the best pitchers to be on the mound, and that regardless of which era we're in, the starting pitcher matchup is the first thing fans see, so everyone wants the big boys out there. Not to mention, the clock's been shortened for the 2024 season as well, with MLBPA chief Tony Clark calling this an unprecedented threat to the game. And I don't blame the MLBPA for claiming that because reduced recovery time will only make things worse for pitchers. Even Kenley Jansen of the Red Sox chimed in and asked, if you're going to be on a torque every time for less than 15 seconds, what do you think is going to happen? He added that pitchers don't get a chance to step off to catch their breath, making it impossible for their bodies to recover. While Jansen didn't call for the pitch clock to be eliminated altogether, he believes that the pitch clock shouldn't be so rushed, or else pitchers will be too fatigued. But the MLB has fired back at the accusations of players and the MLBPA. They cited a study conducted by Johns Hopkins that found no evidence to support the claim that the introduction of the pitch clock has led to more injuries. What's more, the MLB claimed that in 2022, the first time the pitch clock was used in the minors, UCL injuries decreased among minor league players. They pointed towards max effort pitching and focused on pitch design as contributing to the injuries rather than the pitch clock. So the MLB said that the MLBPA has ignored empirical evidence and the long-term trends spanning decades of velocity and spin increases that are highly correlated with arm injuries. Even though the players are pissed at the MLB's measures, the league seems like they couldn't care less since they're only worried about reducing game time. But what they don't realize is that this is at the expense of the pitcher's health. So how exactly can this issue be solved? Well, it depends. For those who think the pitch clock is the issue, they'd say it should be adjusted, but the MLB won't do that. As for the max effort style of pitching, that'll be harder to control, but a possible solution is that they limit the number of pitchers allowed on an active roster so that pitchers across all teams are forced to be more conservative in their styles. All in all, since the injuries are due to a combination of various factors, it's hard to come up with the perfect solution. While the pitch clock might have made things worse, it's hard to deny the fact that injuries have been on the rise since its introduction, and that's mainly because of the velocity craze. So what needs to be done in the baseball world is to de-emphasize throwing as hard as you can at all times, starting at the youth level, then the minors, and eventually the majors. This would be a challenging task to undertake, especially because of how hard it would be to control, and the results would take ages to show even if the plan went well. So from numerous pitchers getting injured in the 2024 MLB season to the baseball world dying to come up with a solution to this horrible problem, that was everything about how MLB pitchers are ending their careers.